Hey, this is Mr. James, and in this video we're going to be talking about flipping math classroom. We'll talk about it by using videos that you create and by using Schoology for assessments, but we'll also talk about different kinds of technology you can use, whether it's someone else's videos or maybe not even a video, and whether you're doing an online assessment or a paper assessment. So we'll look at flipping at a bunch of different technological levels. Before we start, a couple of reminders that I always give my students. Number one, please be taking notes on what I write, what I say, what you see, anything that'll help you remember and process. Number two, please make sure you pause to write down notes. Number three, try and predict ahead or pause to try math problems, or I guess we're not doing math problems here, but any problems that I ask you to pause for. And number four, rewind and rewatch something if you're confused or if you'd like to see it again. So let's get started. So I thought that we might have a little bit of theoretical framework to flipping, and so this is from Vanderbilt University. I think it's Peabody College. But they say that to flip a classroom you need four basic parts. You need prior exposure, an incentive, some sort of assessment, and some sort of higher order activity. So first, prior exposure. So before students come to class, mostly for homework, they need to have some sort of prior exposure. Now, that could be as basic as a book or some sort of written instructions, and usually that's what English does. You read a book at home, and then you come to class and discuss it. But oftentimes, that's not really good enough for math. Oftentimes, it's better to have some sort of real-time explanation. So you could use someone else's video and have kids watch it at home, like Khan Academy, Learn Zillion, YouTube, anything you can find. You could make your own video, or you could make interactive video. We'll talk about what that is in a little bit. But the key through all of this is to make the video somehow interactive. Have the kids take notes, have the kids try practice problems, have the kids thinking and not just writing things down. The second part is to have some sort of incentive, and usually it's a grade. But what I've found is that making videos helps low achievers, students that normally have a hard time listening to you and keeping up in class. They can pause the video, they can watch in the comfort of their own home. If they're tired, go take a nap, come back and watch the video. If they're hungry, go eat dinner and watch the video. Get together with friends, I don't care what you do, but that usually helps provide an incentive, especially to kids that don't normally do as well. Now you gotta somehow measure how they're doing. So there's two ways you could do assessment to see whether or not they're actually doing and understanding this prior exposure. You could have assessment during the video. You give the kids a video, maybe a worksheet to do. So they watch the video, they do the worksheet. You could have kids complete an online quiz on Schoology, so they do the video and they answer questions on Schoology at home. Or you could make an interactive video that's got questions right in that video. Again, that's at the very high end of technology. On the other hand, you could do things during class. So kids watch the video at home, they take their notes, then they come in and they maybe do a do now on paper that asks things about the video to make sure that they've watched it. Or you could have kids do things with Schoology, so they can maybe come into class and take a quick Schoology quiz. The key is that whatever you do, it's got to have some sort of review component and some sort of reflection. So kids should know whether or not they're getting it, right? Don't just have them watch the video, do the homework, and then that's it. They've got to have some sort of reflection. Am I getting this? Am I not? And the whole point to all of this is that once they come to class, you can do higher order activities, discussion, tiered work, some sort of real world application, and save all that more procedural stuff for the video. So those are the four parts to flipping from Vanderbilt, and really the four we're going to be focusing on today is number one and number three, the prior exposure, that video, and some sort of assessment. And I like to make my own videos, and I like to use Schoology in class. We'll talk about why I do those in a second. So let's say you wanted to make your own video. Again, you don't have to. You can pull a video from somewhere else online, and that's just as good, and I do that very often. But if you're going to make your own, what kind of content works best for videos? Well, usually I like to pre-teach, do some sort of pre-teaching. So something that they're going to see in class that would help them with some prior exposure. Usually it's very procedural. I like to save the conceptual for in class. And oftentimes it's maybe prior knowledge that they should know but maybe need to remember. So prior knowledge works very well. Okay? How long should your videos be? Well, a rule of thumb that I've learned is you should target for the minutes of the video to be the same as the grade. So if you have a 10th grade student, try to make the videos about 10 minutes long. So about their grade in minutes. However, if you need to go longer, that's fine, but try and keep it under their age in minutes. So again, a 10th grade student is around 15, 16, so you really don't want to go above that 15, 16 minutes for a 10th grader. So max is their age in minutes. Okay, and that's really important to avoid things like test fatigue video fatigue and not being able to watch it. So then that brings us to how do you actually make the video? What kind of hardware do I use? So hardware you need. Here are some different options. You need something that's a touch screen. You could use an iPad, and there's some apps on the iPad that'll help you. You could use a touchscreen PC, which is what I'm using right now. You could even video yourself in front of a whiteboard, or if you'd like. Or you could use a bamboo tablet, which is kind of like additional plug into the computer through USB that Mr. Murray uses. So maybe you can talk to us about that in a little bit. So that's the hardware. What kind of software do you need? Well, if you're going to be using a computer, I like to use Screencast-O-Matic. It's a free software that basically just takes a video or screencast of your screen. It's what I'm using right now as we speak. You could use Educanon, which is a little more higher technology. It allows you to make a video and then embed questions into that video, so it's a little higher on the difficulty scale. And then, of course, you can upload any of these things to youtube.com. There's a whole bunch of different apps you can use for the iPad that I'll talk about later if you'd like to try this using the iPad. I personally, when I do these videos, I like to give my kids a printout of this sheet. So like you have right now, this sheet you're writing on, I give my kids the same printout. You can make a full page like I do. You can print out the slides that you use, just maybe 4 slides on a page, 2 slides on a page, 6 slides on a page, whatever fits. And I'll show you some samples in a little bit. Right, so we'll talk about making our own video in depth when we get to class. But before we do, let's talk about assessment. I like to assess in class as opposed to at home. Why is that? Well, I assess in class primarily because it's more secure, right? I don't have any sort of cheating, no copying. I let the kids use their notes in class, which is an incentive to use the notes, or to take notes as an incentive. Okay? Because if they took it at home, then they wouldn't really need to copy down the notes, right? It's more of a recall skill if you're taking notes and then the assessment's in class. And also, I can get a sense real time how my kids are doing and whether they know something before I actually start class. Now, why do I use Schoology for that? Well, when you use Schoology, it's automatically graded, so it's very fast. It's automatically graded, and you can see the results. See the results in class. And you can actually review the results with your kids, which is a nice reflection component. Okay? And again, we'll see that when we come to class or when we end this video. So lastly, what difficulties have I had with this? Well, as you can imagine, there's been a number of difficulties, right? So the big thing is, do we have to teach students how to watch a video? And the answer is absolutely yes, right? I tell my kids, when you read an English book, okay, you just kind of read straight through. Sometimes you'll stop and comprehend things, but you kind of read straight through. If you ever read a math textbook, and I actually do this for my kids, I read them a section of a calculus textbook, you have to stop and read every sentence, every word, every number to understand. Same thing with movies and videos. You go watch a movie, get some popcorn, you just let it wash over you, but for a math video, you got to slow down. So I tell my kids to do these 4 things. I have them take notes. I have them take notes of what I'm saying, what I'm writing, and what they see. I have them pause if it's too fast. Okay? So don't just let it keep going. Pause if it's too fast. Okay? The third thing I have them do is I have them try problems, and if they can, predict what's going to happen next. Like if I write an equation down, pause the video and try and solve it before I do. The last thing I have them do is rewind. Rewind if they missed anything or if they need to see anything later. Especially if they have maybe a worksheet or bookwork the next night for homework, they can always rewind the video to see another model of how to do that worksheet or bookwork. So the next biggest issue is, what do students do in class if they don't watch the video? Well, at the beginning of my classes, I have the kids do a do now, usually on Schoology, but sometimes in paper, and if they didn't watch the video, they're certainly not going to do well on that do now. So what I do is I have them watch the video at the beginning of class, while everyone else is doing the do now. They take a 0 on the do now, and sometimes I'll have them do the do now right after the video if they have time. Sometimes if we're doing an activity I want them to see, I'll have them watch the video and jump right in. But in any case, I watch the video at the start of class instead of the do now. Okay, the warm-up, right? Occasionally, like I said, I'll have them go back and do the do now, but that provides them an incentive, right? If you don't watch the video, you're going to take a 0 on the do now. And lastly, what if they don't have the technology? What if they don't have a computer or anything at home? Well, actually, it's less of an issue than you'd think. A lot of students have computers in a lot of our schools, and even if they don't, a lot of students have computers at home. Even if they don't, a lot of them have their phones at home, and even if they don't, most schools have an advisory or a study hall kind of thing built in, and even if that doesn't work, there's before school or after school. Keeping your videos shorter really helps with that. I know right now we're on about pushing 12 minutes. But in any case, before school, after school, advisory, using a phone, using the desktop computer in the class, if their computer is broken, anything like that can work. So anything that I just said, you can, I guess, write down there. All right, that's the end of the brief intro to flipped videos using Schoology. Make sure you're taking notes, rewinding this if you have to, and get ready to take the video check.